welcome back to the greatest training channel on YouTube. Today is Monday, back at the track. As you guys have already seen, I've been doing some sled sprints today. Last week, because of the event that was going on inside here, I wasn't able to do my sled sprints, so I did my sprints outside. If you remember, I was doing against the wind to try to get a little bit of resistance, and then I did some sprints with the wind at my back. So this is what today's session is supposed to look like. So I did my warm-up, got into some build-ups, try to get the legs moving, and then started off with some 50-meter sled sprints to kind of start the session off. On the sled today, I've got 15% body weight. So even though I'm under 100 kilos, I always just round to 100 just to make it easier. So I've got 15 kilos on the sled as I was doing those 50-meter sprints, and it felt good. It might have been a little too heavy, and the reason I say that is anytime you're starting to do longer sprints with the sled, so really anything that's over probably 25 meters, so once you start getting to 30 meters plus and you're using a sled, that load needs to be light enough so you can hit the positions that you would be at that distance if you were just doing a straight on sprint. So you're not full on acceleration, you're not full on max velocity, you're kind of in that middle phase as you're transitioning through. So the sled needs to be light enough to where you can hit those positions properly, as well as not change the cadence of your sprint. So you don't want to be spending a lot more time on the ground comparative to if you were doing a free sprint with no acceleration. That 15 was like right on the borderline for me. I still felt like I was able to put my foot on the ground and kind of get that bounce off of the ground as I was sprinting. I felt like I was able to maintain positions fairly well, but next week I think I'm going to drop it down to 10% and only have 10 kilos on the sled and see if that helps out with that cadence a little bit. I did feel like my sprint cadence was a little bit slow, so I want to speed that up as we go. So next week, possibly drop that down 5% and be at that 10% range, so 10 kilos on the sled, and hopefully that'll kind of make things feel a little bit better. But overall, sled work for today felt great. I'm gonna move into some 95% effort sprints now. Same distance, we're gonna go 50 meters. Probably gonna do just 2 to 3 of these. Legs are kind of fried, my hamstrings from doing those Nordics at the end of last week. My hamstrings are really tight. I can definitely feel the back of my leg as I'm getting into my cycle start to like not be able to lift that knee up as high as I want to. We'll do at least 2 50s, see how it feels. If they feel good, we'll do 3 50s. And then we're gonna end today's session with some plyos. And this variation of plyos that I'm doing today is gonna be different than what I've been doing for the previous block and for the previous training cycles. So I'll get into those as we get there. But before I knock out these 50s, I do want to say we're still slightly over 400 subscribers until we hit our 5,000 subscriber goal. Once that goal is hit, I'm going to be releasing the 8-week speed program for you guys, which is going to be 100% free. You don't have to pay for it. You'll just be able to download it, get the full 8 weeks right then and there. So 400-ish plus subscribers, and that program comes out to you guys. So if you're here for the first time, you like what you see, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, get a free program. It's gonna be good for everybody. Let's start knocking out some 50s. Okay, 50 meters are done. 3 reps. That was the minimum that I wanted to hit today. I got those done. Next week, maybe I'll bump it up and do 4. Maybe I'll keep it at 3. It just depends on how I'm feeling as that day comes. But the last thing I'm gonna be doing for today's session is going to be doing a variation of alternating bounds. So for me, I have 3 main variations when I'm doing alternating bounds. I either doing alternating bounds for distance, alternating bounds for height, or I do what's called a speed bound, where I'm more focused on the velocity of the bounding than I am the distance and the height on those jumps. Today, The variation I'm choosing is a speed bound. It's gonna match very well with doing my 50-meter sprints, a little bit more velocity into that. The focus of a speed bound is like it sounds. You're maintaining that speed as you're jumping through on each of those repetitions. So what I like to do is I'm probably gonna do these for about 30 meters. I give myself like a 5 or 10 meter kind of jog into it, and then I just start bounding and try to maintain that speed throughout. The biggest thing that you'll see when it comes to the difference between like a speed bound and a bound for distance or a bound for height is that time spent on the ground on each of those bounds. A speed bound is a lot quicker as you're cycling through back and forth, left to right, versus an alternating bound for height or for distance. You have a little bit more time on the ground because you're trying to put a lot more force to get yourself either up or out on each of those bounds. If you were to look at it from like a side profile, you're doing alternating bounds for height. Obviously, you're gonna see those hips rise and fall a lot because the goal is you're trying to get height on each of those jumps. When you go alternating bounds for distance, a little bit less of a variance on the height of the hips, but you'll still see that hip as it hits the ground, and then it elevates throughout the bound, back down to the ground when you hit the next step. When you do speed bounds, that variance between the height of the hip at its lowest point and the height of the hip at its highest point is very low because you're trying to just maintain velocity and push through. So alternating bounds for height, you might see the hips rise and fall high. Alternating bounds for distance, you might see them rise and fall a little bit less. Alternating bounds when we're looking for speed, I mean, that should be like a really slow oscillation on those hips there. Probably gonna do 3 reps at a minimum, maybe 5 reps at a maximum, depending on how these feel. So I'm gonna set the camera up, might just leave right here for the first couple reps, but I'm gonna do 30 meters on the alternating speed bounds, rest in between, probably 90 seconds, 2 minutes. You don't need a ton of rest after each one of these here. All right, so session today was really good overall. Got done what I needed to get done. Was glad that I could get into the track today, use the sled, not have to make adjustments to my plan like I did last week. So a couple things here real quick before I end the video. I think what I'm going to be doing with the frequency that I upload these videos, I was doing it daily and just knocking out videos, putting it out. But what I've noticed is if I give each video a little bit more time before I upload the next video, that video generally does better. When I was pumping out videos back to back to back, there'd be a video or two in that 6-day span that would get significantly less views and get less traction than the previous video or the video following. So what I'm gonna try to do over the next few weeks and probably the next month is do 3 videos a week. 1 week probably do 2 lifting videos and a tracks video. The next week do some sort of variation where it's maybe 2 track videos and a lifting video, or some sort of like track video, lifting video, and then like a how-to or some sort of an educational based video. But that way I can still get out videos frequently. You guys can see how each week of the training is going as we start progressing towards different things, whether it's a max out or a sprint test, anything like that. It'll also kind of work with the YouTube algorithm a little bit better and allow each video to kind of marinate there, get a little bit more traction, get some more views, more likes, more comments, and then pump out a video after that and hopefully see a little bit better traction. So I did it last week to kind of see how it was. Each video did better, faster than the weeks previous where I was knocking out videos every single day. So we're gonna try it out, see how it goes. And then we'll just make adjustments as we go and as the channel continues to grow. The other thing is, I have been invited to do the end of the season track meet here in Iceland. So it's like the end of their outdoor season. I think it's in August sometime, but they want me to come out and run 100. I think there's gonna be a couple pretty decent 100-meter sprinters that are going to be in this track meet. I told them I would think about it depending on what my schedule looks like, depending on how I'm feeling with training and everything, but I'm not against it. So there could be a possibility that I'm actually gonna go out, get onto the track, get into the blocks, and bust out 100 and kind of see what things are. So it does line up fairly well to what this training phase is that I'm doing. So the idea that I had is this was gonna be like a 12-week strength cycle. Currently, we're on the second block of that, just now starting week 6. So we finished that first 4-week block. Last week was week 5, which was the first week of this second block. Now we're on week 6, which is the week 2 of this block. So by the time we get towards like week 10, week 11, I think is when that track meet would be. I'll make up my mind as we get closer. Really, it's gonna come down to, I think it's the track meet's gonna be on a weekend. If I have my daughter, then it's gonna be a no-go. I'm not gonna drag my daughter out to a track meet and make her sit around or try to find a babysitter just so I can go run a 100-meter dash. So if it ends up falling on that, then it's a no-go. If I can swing something where it falls in onto a weekend where I don't have her and I'm free and I'm not working or doing anything like that, then I'll go ahead and do it. But the big thing is just gonna be, if it falls in my schedule and it works well, great. I'm not going to be moving everything around to try to make it happen. But I have been invited, so if we can make it work, we'll get out to the track, we'll run a 100-meter dash, full gun start, FAT, legit 100-meter setup. So maybe that happens for you guys in the future. But that's gonna be it for today's video. Tomorrow we're going into the weight room. I've got the cleans, I've got back squats, I've got bench press. It's gonna be a big strength day tomorrow. And then I'll film tomorrow's video, but like I said already, I think I'm going to wait a day. So tomorrow's training session won't actually come out until like Wednesday or Thursday this week. So you might be like a day or two behind from when the video is actually filmed to when it gets onto YouTube. But I want to try this out and see how it goes. I feel like it'll help each video do a little bit better versus just kind of rapid firing videos off and knocking them out on a daily basis. So other than that, hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you guys in about 48 hours.